Good evening. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here tonight and support Vroman's and independent bookstores. We really appreciate it. I also want to take a moment to just tell you about our new policy with regard to purchasing the books here on the night of the signing. Before I worked in a bookstore, I didn't realize that authors are sent to us from publishers based on the number of books we sell the evening they come to do a signing. So if people bring their books from outside, then we won't continue to receive wonderful authors like this evening's authors. So the philosophy is kind of like not bringing your own beer into the bar. So that sort of describes it. So I did want to take a moment to explain that to you and express our appreciation in advance. So if you would like to get your book signed, we are now asking that you please purchase one from Vroman's, and your receipt will be your signing ticket. Tonight it is our great pleasure and honor to present Barry Sanders, who is here to discuss his book, American Avatar, The United States in the Global Imagination. Mr. Sanders was born in Philadelphia and is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and the Yale Law School. In addition to being an adjunct professor of communications studies at UCLA, Mr. Sanders is also a member of the USC Center on Public Diplomacy's advisory board, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and a member of the Pacific Council on International Policy. He is also a renowned international lawyer with the firm of Lathan and Watkins. Additionally, Mr. Sanders has served as the chair of both the California Bar Association and the Los Angeles Bar Association. Barry Sanders is an important civic leader in Los Angeles and serves on the Council of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Los Angeles Department of Parks and Recreation, the Board of Commissioners of the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and the Executive Commission of the Los Angeles Opera. The praise for this book has been wonderful, including the following from Howard Berman. It challenges assumptions and offers a way forward in this area of great importance to our nation. Please help me welcome Barry Sanders.
I don't know that I need this.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Connie. It's an honor and a privilege to be here at Vroman's Bookstore. Vroman's is an institution in Southern California, the oldest and largest bookstore, and it's wonderful to be here today. The book, American Avatar, is a book that derives from years of thinking about the issue of images of our country and how people form their ideas. It's a book about ideas, but I try to write it in a way that looks at it from the point of view of human nature and common sense. So what I'm asking when I talk about images of America is not just the question of why they hate us, though there are people out there who do hate us, but you'll find that the majority of people around the world have always, and still to this day, have a favorable impression of this country. But the question I'm asking is, how do people come by their ideas? How do they derive this idea, an idea about America, or how do they derive any idea? You could ask people about their images of Finland or their images of Ecuador or Mauritius, and they may have some or they may have none. But it's worth talking about images of America because this is one of the rare concepts that has some landscape in the mind of almost everyone around the world, however remote, and has for over 200 years. So that makes it a perfect place to look at how people form their ideas and also to find lots of things that are written to give you guidance on how they form their ideas not only today, but how they formed them 100 years ago and 200 years ago. And there's some surprising continuity. And I think that what's particularly useful about looking at this is if you want to have an opportunity to change people's ideas, you ought to start out, in my view, with an understanding of how they developed their ideas. It may seem surprising to you, but that would be a new approach. So I set out to do it, and in doing it, I'm able to base a lot of my thinking about it originally on years of doing international negotiations. And as any of you know, when you sit around to try to negotiate with someone across a table, or even without a table, it's important to know what you want. But frankly, anybody can know what he or she wants. What's just as important, or more important, is to know what the person on the other side of the table wants. So sometimes you'll sit there across a table from someone for days or weeks, and what you're constantly puzzling over is, what is it they want? What's in their minds? So I thought I had some ideas about this, and I had some friends at UCLA who asked me to teach a course about 10 years ago, and I said I'd be happy to do that if I can teach a course about the image of America. And I've been doing that for a number of years. And this book is not a textbook. This is intended to be a book that can be read by an intelligent audience such as this one. But it is something that contains many of the ideas that are equipped in that course. The fundamental idea, the one that should seem so obvious, is that an image of America or anything else is an idea. And it's an idea in someone else's head. It's the old beauty in the eye of the beholder. And this means that when you're asking questions about images of America, you are asking not about America, but you're asking about them and how people's minds work. The concern that we've had, especially since September 2011, about people's ideas about America has typically involved a tremendous amount of hand-wringing about what have we done, what are we doing, and of course, what we've done, what we are, what we do, what we say, those things are relevant to ideas in people's heads, but they are the beginning of the question, not the end, because still the examination is in what's in people's heads. And you'll find that images then are mixed, contradictory, often unrelated to the thing that is imagined. Let me give you some examples. Recent examples out of the newspapers from just the last few weeks or a couple of months, so it's after this book went to bed. Here's a quote from the Los Angeles Times about some folks in Libya in August, right after it was clear that Gaddafi was coming down, and there were demonstrations in the streets of Benghazi. And here's a quote about a fellow called Keish. Keish decided to bring along a flag to the demonstration, that is. It wasn't the ubiquitous Libyan rebel flag that flutters at every downtown rally. He chose the American flag, the Stars and Stripes, on a long, heavy pole. Quote, Libyans love America, Keish explained as he cut through a boisterous crowd that numbered in the tens of thousands. They love the flag because it stands for freedom and democracy, exactly what they want for Libya. So, first of all, this is an interesting point of view. This is a statement made by somebody who, since Gaddafi had been there for 43 years and controlled everything in the schools and everything in the newspapers, you can imagine that praise of America was not something he was weaned on. This is something he didn't learn in school. This is something that managed to seep through to people in a closed society. So that it's not just praise, but there's an image in there. And before I go further, I want to say that. So much of the concern people have had is about these annual studies that come out now that the Pew Global Center does, and they're really quite professionally done, of global attitudes. And you'll read every June when they come out with their annual study that image of America went down or image of America went up. This is actually not a study of images. It's more of a popularity contest. It's a study of attitudes, because they'll ask people, are you favorable or are you unfavorable? Favorable or unfavorable is not an image. When I talk about images, I mean about things like stands for freedom and democracy, or it's racist, or imperialist, or land of opportunity, or rich, or poor. You could have that image too. Those are images. So we've seen these radical shifts in our attitude surveys, but they are not necessarily a measure of imagery. And that's an important part of what I'm studying. So here you have a fellow who, despite a lifetime of indoctrination in anti-Americanism, is at the ready with an image already in his mind that the American flag stands for freedom and democracy. Interesting. Then, almost simultaneously, a few days later, in Egypt, where they've also had the Arab Spring, and where we are quietly providing funding to many of the non-governmental organizations that are promoting democracy. Here's a quote. America does not want for Egypt to become the largest democratic country in the region, says Al-Sayed al-Badawi, chairman of the secular and liberal Waft party, not one of the religious parties, the secular and liberal party. The aim of American funding for Egyptian NGOs is to create chaos and to overthrow Egyptian values and traditions. So that's in the adjoining country, simultaneously, a different set of images. And then here's another one from Libya at just about the same time, a couple weeks later. Haitham Ahmed, a 24-year-old student with bullet wounds in his stomach and arm,